dance for joy or lust or anger, and every time you haven't got it right, you'll want to run.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Classics, the show where we take a car that's over 15 years old and is worth between £1,000 and £5,000 through its paces in a practical and sensible way. This is a 1973 Rover P5B.
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Warwick Road, B4086.
Thank you, sat-nav lady. 1973 Rover P5B 3.5 litre Coupé, and it's worth a bit more than £5,000, but I hope you'll forgive that. So the Rover P5, or 3 litre as it was known for most of its model run, was released in 1958. This is at a time when Rover was an independent company, and they did initially use a version of the engine that was already in the P4. In 3 litre form, that engine was never actually used in the P4, although there were a couple of P5s with 2.4 and 2.6 litre engines. 2.4 was for the Austrian market and the 2.6 litre was for the French and Nigerian markets, but mostly for its production life until about 1967 they used that 3 litre engine. Came in several power outputs, solid 115 horsepower, and by the end of the 3 litres it was about 134 horsepower. The automatic versions I think had 129 from the Mark II onwards. Got servo assisted brakes in this car. They're not the best brakes I've ever used in my entire life, but they are satisfying to use, and I like the sort of sewing machine hum that you get from this V8 engine. Initially it was something that Buick was using in the early 1960s. I think it was known as the 215, that's the cubic inch capacity of it, but they didn't know what to do with it for some reason, and so when one of Rover's managers came over to America in about 1964 I think it was, he was investigating things used for marine applications, and he discovered this engine just not really being used. So he decided that they needed to have a go with it, and that was very good because they significantly modified it and made it produce somewhere between 158 and 184 horsepower. I've seen different power outputs of this, both online and reading the classic Rovers, but we put my window up here. There we go. Ooh. The P5Bs with the Buick engine came out in late 1967. By this stage power steering was standard, although on the saloons it would be an option for a few years. The Coupé was the kind of more luxurious version, the version that people wanted to buy. Although in the Man Who Haunted Himself, a film that was made in 1970 with Roger Moore, who was sort of between the Saint and Bond at the time, his character Harold Pelham, he drives one of these P5Bs, but it's a saloon. There's 2 different examples used in the course of the plot. We think it might be the same car though, a G-Reg and an H-Reg one. And I need a moustache and a briefcase if I want to be that. It's obviously cheaper than a lot of the other cars that Roger Moore drove on television, like the Aston Martin DBS and the Persuaders, and the Volvo P1800s or 1800s, depending on what year it was, in the Saint. These cars though aren't cheap anymore. You could pick probably up a rough 3 litre for £5,000 if you were really kind of lucky. So we're right, maybe not quite within the sensible second-hand reviews budget today for most of these. The 3.5 litres 3.5s, they're badged as both. No, sorry, they're sold as both, badged as 3.5, 3.5, but sold as both the 3.5 and 3.5, depending on model year. Good ones of these sometimes change hands for up to £25,000. This car does need a bit of cosmetic work on it in some way. This paint's actually pretty good, to be fair. It's the interior that needs a couple of cosmetic jobs, and also just a few kind of minor electrical things we're sorting out on this, but my goodness me, it feels good. The brakes, apparently they will need changing at some point, but they are a lot better than Ford Coupé 2.8 injection brakes, is all I can say. It just feels very imperious driving down the road in this. I feel like a captain of industry. I feel like a driver to Harold Wilson or Edward Heath or James Callaghan or Margaret Thatcher. All of them used these cars, I think, for government work. And goodness gracious me, it's just wonderful. It's quite easy to drive. The power steering is really, really light. Really light. I can't really feel what's going on, but it's an enormous steering wheel. It feels good though. I'm enjoying myself tremendously. We've got pretty good visibility as well through these big windows. So here we are, viewers. Again, back at Julk's garage near Kyneton. And it seems a very sort of appropriate place to bring this, because in the 1970s this was both a petrol station and an actual working garage. The shape of this car is just beautiful. It's a beautiful classic shape. I'm not surprised that the Queen still has a couple of these. She's had several actually, Queen Elizabeth, but she's got one about this age. It's a K registration, and she has I think another one. It's slightly different. They're both green, I think. I think it's JGY280 and JGY280K. That JGY280 plate's been on several cars. Just coming up and opening the door. We do have several keys to this as well. Just the way it opens and the smell of the car. This isn't smell-o-vision, so I can't really describe to you it's in adequate detail, but it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. Big steering wheel. Some P5s didn't have power steering. This one does. All the V8 models did, and the Coupé models got that, I think, from the mid-60s. Horn ring, of course, and just big thin rim steering wheel. Smell of old car. It's absolutely, utterly exquisite. Very, very strange controls in this car. I have asked Gonzalo, who's the owner, what these switches down here do. Some of these are aftermarket, like that green one on the right. Some of them are not, but he's not really sure what they do. We will get the toolkit out in a bit and have a look at it. That does require two hands though, so we might have to do that in stages. That radio dates from the 1980s, and it is, well, it's broken, unfortunately, so we won't be hearing any Pioneer Auto Reverse tape goodness today, I'm afraid. Anyway, that would probably have copyright infringement attached to it, so none of that. Heater is on the left here. That's the control for the heat. Demister is on the right hand side there. Right in the middle of a dash, so you can't see it very well, so you've got to be a bit knowledgeable about what goes on to see what's going on with these. We've got loads of auxiliary gauges down here, oil pressures down there, there's the ammeter, water temperature's there, and the fuel is just on the right. I'm just going to close the door because it's a little bit drizzly at the moment. So got the speedometer there and the rev counter. All the V8 P5s have an automatic gearbox. The earlier 6-cylinder ones, you could get a choice of manual overdrive and auto, although some of them had an earlier auto gearbox. This is a Borg Warner Type 35, which is also used in the P6. Ignition key is actually on the left hand side in this car. I've got various keys. Hopefully one of them actually is the one that I'm looking for. The earlier cars actually had the key in that place there. Oh, I got the right key. Excellent. Also see kind of down there that we've got a couple of other things. One of them is the handbrake. It's an umbrella handbrake in this car. The brake warning light is actually down there. There's a little switch there. The brake is just on the right hand side of it, if you can see there. That is the indicators and that is the light. So you need to use it in conjunction with that light switch at the top of there. I don't know why you need another control for heater. I think it's a heater fan is there. I'm not sure what that does on the side of there. Again, loads of different bits, but I'm just not really sure what they do. There we go, so that is on. So maybe we'll have some of the lights. A panel light might actually work if I use that switch there. Not to do anything. Oh well, viewers. The wiper switch. So I've turned the wiper on. There we go. Got some wiper action going on. Let's turn that off. Fast and slow speed is just where they park, just down there. Compared with something like a Rover P4, this is actually a relatively large rear view mirror. Like the whole car is really, really big. And there's the little brake light. There you go. That means my handbrake's on. Right like that. So if I turn the ignition off, you can see that goes out. Down here we have another row of switches. I do actually know what these do. There's actually a fuel reserve on this car, a bit like an old Beetle, if you're familiar with those, little fuel tap. Choke levers there, hazard switches there, and the bonnet release is just there. There's also on the right hand side there a cold air release. Apparently that works quite well. I look forward to trying that. Manual windows. I don't think you could get electric windows in one of these. I could be wrong. Maybe aftermarket or something. It's manual windows. Little quarter light. That's useful ventilation on warm days. And over there is the clock, which yeah, it's not the most useful place for it. Presume if you had one of these cars, you might have someone to tell you that that was the time. You'd have somebody just sitting there telling you the time, which would be handy, I suppose. Very nice big sun visors. They feel beautiful, like a lot of this car does. Just wonderful. Gonzalo's very kindly fitted two mirrors here because well, yeah, you kind of need to see where you're going, don't you? That's handy. You've got one that side as well. I think those are standard, the ones on the bonnet, as far as I know. Right, have another look round, shall we? At some point in this car's past, someone's fitted an aftermarket sort of lockdown there. I don't quite know why. Never mind. But yes, a majestic styling of the P5. I think that's like a sort of chassis reinforcement at the bottom there. Got these nice wheels. These are the standard wheels of the car. The colour's called Zircon Blue, by the way. And it was very popular on Rovers, P5s and P6s in the 60s and 70s. This car was built in 1972, registered in 73. There is actually a heritage certificate for it, so we might have a look at that in a while, actually. You can tell straight away that this is the 3.5 litre or 3.5 litre model because of the fog lights at the bottom there, and also the badges. Now the car was sold as both the 3.5 litre and the 3.5. Later on as the 3.5 in the brochures, although this badge never changed. So you can call it a 3.5 or 3.5 or just a P5B. It just depends on what your preference is, really. See little sort of styling cues that were used in the 75 in the late 90s, such as the little badges here. And of course, if we looked at the rear of the car, the huge number plate, which I'm sure is a sort of kind of throwback to that. Just beautiful styling, this Coupé. There was also a saloon, of course. The Coupé was a more expensive model, and that's why it got power steering first. Overriders, of course, you don't know what you're going to be getting in for in this. And we're going to have a look in a second at this absolutely enormous boot. Rather like a P4, this is the reversing light here. It's not quite where you'd expect it. It also acts as a number plate light. absolutely, utterly enormous boot. I'll just move this battery cover out of the way so you can get more of an idea of it. Got the car cover in here as well, but it smells great. It smells really nice in here. Battery in the boot. We actually had a couple of weeks ago when we were with some friends, Gonzalo and I and some others, we actually put a chap in the boot of this, and you can fit easily 2 people in here. I don't know why you need to fit 2 people in the boot of a Rover P5, but if you want to, then you can. Right, you need to be quite firm with closing it. I might do that again. Hold on a second, viewers. Right, that's better. Aftermarket speakers in the back of here, and also a little reversing light. Let's actually climb in the back, the place where Harold Wilson would have sat, although he had a pipe rest in his car. Ultra luxury. But the later P5s had this sort of 4-seat arrangement in them. It's nothing new actually to have a 4-door coupe like this at all, and to have just 4 seats in it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Obviously, you want to sit that side. If you've got a sort of taller driver like Gonzalo is, then you'll have the seat in this position. I love these sort of headrests. It's funny because a lot of these little interior details, not so much the styling of the car, which dates to about 1958, but the little details like this headrest do feel kind of sort of up to date for the early 1970s. Look at this. Beautiful armrest. That is just amazing. And you can see the way it's cantilevered nicely. No mat pockets on the back. There are actually controls to the rear heater here. So if you need to go to your cabinet meetings at unsuitable times in the morning, then you can. Little lights here. That actually works. Hook for the jacket. You don't want to get a little crumpled, and a little clunk clip thing as well. I haven't seen one of those in years. View is utter abject luxury. Little quarter light there, quarter light on the front as well. Are we ever going to beat this amount of luxury? And thank goodness we've got inertia reel seatbelts too. So here is the former Buick 3.5 litre V8. In this case it sort of varies as to what you want to believe as to how much horsepower it puts out. I've seen figures of about 160 horsepower. I've also seen figures of more like 180, depending on the ratings that it is. I've got my classic Rover's book with me, and that says different things from the sources online, but there we go. So there we go, it fits nicely in here, and everything is, I suppose, reasonably easy to work on. But a car though from 1972, it actually does look a bit more complicated to work on than much of the other stuff that would be there. I've got a brake servo in here, and I'm grateful for that. And you know, things are quite clearly marked in here, which is nice. The fuses though, they do look a little bit vulnerable there, just particularly because it's been raining today, and you can see where the rain's kind of sort of coming in, so that's maybe not the best position for something like that. No cam belts or anything to worry about on these engines. They are very, very strong, and they were made until I think it was the early 2000s actually, so you know, getting bits of these, it probably isn't as difficult as it is for a lot of other engines of this era. Right viewers, I think we're going to go for another drive. Lloyd Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. Certainly the sort of person interested in one of these possibly might have been interested in a Rolls Royce, but actually a good one of these is worth more than a good Silver Shadow in some ways, and that is just remarkable. Cruising along here through the country lanes of Warwickshire, doing about 50 miles an hour according to speedo. I don't know how much I really sort of trust it. I really couldn't say, but you know, we're not speeding or anything today. I don't really want to go for any speed records in these, despite what Roger Moore's antics were in Marion Waters himself when he gets possessed, doing illegal manoeuvres on the M4. I don't feel like I want to do any illegal manoeuvres at all. I feel like I just want to waft along to my next ministerial meeting. And as we've just covered earlier on, the Queen very much approves of these cars. She's had several of them, and still owns 2 of them now at least. I feel very privileged to have had Gonzalo, who owns this car, allow me to have a go in it. It's something I've been wanting to do for years, to drive one of these. This is probably one of the most quintessential Rovers ever made, and maybe even one of the most quintessential British cars ever designed. One of the things that this sort of makes me feel is a sort of very, very nostalgic.
Quarter of a mile, turn right onto Church Street, B 4086.
And certainly I hope that this video has made you feel like that too. So viewers, the Rover P5, specifically this P5B, is this a car that you should consider for a little bit more than the normal sensible second-hand classics budget of between £1,000 and £5,000? Well, you're going to need at least £15,000 for an example like this. But if you want to feel like Roger Moore, from the man who haunted himself, then this is it. This is what you get, unless you want a Lamborghini Isolero, in which case you're going to be spending many times that. Depends on your sort of temperament. But yes, I've really enjoyed myself, viewers. I've been wanting to drive one of these for some time. I've driven a P4 and a P6 and now a P5, and I feel very privileged. Thank you once again to Gonzalo for allowing me to drive this. Obviously there's loads of things you need to check for on all these. Rust and electrics is a big one on these. They are quite heavy cars, so can be heavy on the brakes. But yes, prices are rising, and they also have the raw seal of approval. So thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Classics. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we'll see you again soon for more sensible and practical older motoring.